What's up, guys? It's your boy Vance, and I'm back on another video. And today we're gonna be talking about your image, man. Like, what do people see when they see you? What do you represent? What do who are you? What do you do? Like, what are you about? When people see your life, it's kind of like people are reading about you. What are they gonna read? Are they gonna read a average, mediocre person, lazy person, or are they gonna read somebody that's like, go-getter, person that puts others in front of themselves, and a leader, stuff like that. So that's one of the questions I always like to ask people. Like, what do you do? Who are you? What's your why? What's your story? A lot of y'all don't even have a story, or when you look back, like, you can't even remember what you did yesterday. You can't even remember what you did last week. Like, it's stuff like that. You can't remember what you're doing, and you're probably doing meaningless stuff. You're probably bullcrapping. It's one of those things where you have to do things that are going to create memories, and obviously for the right reasons. And obviously, bad stuff's going to happen. It's going to happen, but like I said, that's one of the things where you have to embrace it and move on. Whether it's you failing or something, you learn it and then you move on. But it's like, what is your image? I want y'all to, like I said, go in the mirror, or open up your camera and just tell me, what do you see? Do you see someone that's going to be the best? Do you see someone that's striving for greatness? Do you see someone that's 100% in? Or do you see someone that's like, taking life easy, a joke? Do you see someone that's not serious? Like, what do you see? And like, your image speaks a lot. Like with me, you always ask a couple people and they always be like, oh, I don't care. And it's a way to say that and not come off like, whatever. Like me, I always say, I don't care, but I don't care in the sense of like people talking about me, what people think of me, because I know the real me. It's that confidence in myself. You feel me? People will write you off and want to, tear your name up and all this stuff if you allow it to. You have a lot of people that will sit there and, like I said, talk bad about you, do all this stuff, and like I said, say it to other people. But at the end of the day, if you know who you really are, and the people that believes it, hey, that's on them. But if you know who you really are, you know what you stand for, you know what you're doing, that's what matters. It does not matter what other people are doing. We live in a world where people are too busy trying to please others, trying to look good for others. When it's like, no, look good for yourself. Do the things that you're doing for yourself or your family. Do the great thing. Do the things that you might not want to do, but do it great. And like I said, keep doing it. That discipline and all that stuff. That building small habits to create big ones. But it's like that. It's necessary. It's very necessary. You can't be one foot in, one foot out. Like it's 100%. You got to be there. If you want to achieve these great things that people write stories about, and you read up on all these great people and stuff like that, and like in their past and all that stuff. In order to get to that level, you have to do something extraordinary. Right now you're doing ordinary things, what everybody else is doing, but you got to stand out and be extraordinary. And like I said, you keep doing that, your image is going to speak for itself. Like with me, when it comes to fitness and all that stuff, you got those people that's like, oh, try to talk about, this and that, they did this and that. I don't have to do anything. 9 out of 10 people have already seen it. What I've done, like the lifts, or, what I'm about, my how I look, my image, you see it. I don't have to say anything. You see what I do. You see, the things that I've done. You see, like I said, even the way I carry myself. A lot of people, they just be like, oh yeah, you're, a lot of people think I'm older than what I really am. Obviously I look young, but my mindset's on a whole different level, and that's the fun part, and that's, my image. One thing I like about my image is most people understand like what I do, what I'm about, without me having to say something. You have to get to that level, not like, and I'm not saying that you have to, like, if they don't know what you do, or, whatever, that's wrong. No, I'm not saying that. But when you get to that level to where, you just, like, it's just there, it just pours out of you without you even having to say anything, your actions, like, that's when what you're doing is great, and like with me, like I said, just helping people and like I said, seeing people become the best versions of themselves. You know, I'm very selfless, very humble, you know, because at the end of the day, I know everything can be taken away. So it's like every day that I have, you know, on this planet I'm always pushing myself towards greatness. I'm always learning a new thing. I always, you know, do something that I don't like doing, you know, being uncomfortable, but getting used to it, you know, so then that uncomfortableness becomes comfortable. You know, that's how you grow. You know, you grow by being comfortable with being uncomfortable. You know, that's with anything in life. You know, that's the thing that people get wrong with, like, you know, how I am with these videos and stuff. I'm not talking about fitness, man. This is in general. You know, whether, like I said, you're trying to be a doctor, you're trying to be, you know, trying to go to the pro leagues in the sport, whatever, man, just do it. Just do it. That's who I'm talking to. You know, that's why I created this other channel. You know, because I do have a fitness channel. But that one's mainly for fitness, you know, a bodybuilding side. That's when you get, you know, Gain City, you get that version of it. Right now, you're getting advanced, you know. You're getting that never stay satisfied mentality. It's like a switch, you know, I can turn on and turn off, you know. And like I said, this is one thing that I love to connect with people, because I can connect with anybody. You know, that's the whole point. You know, like with fitness, it's mainly just fitness. It's kind of narrowed down, you know. But like with here, I can connect with anybody, you know, because at the end of the day, I just want everybody to win. You know, especially when, like I always tell people, everybody has a beast within them. You know, some gets woken up, some never does. You know, and I know with you, I want yours to wake up, because I know it's in you. You know, and it's one of them things where you have to do it. I can't do it for you. Nobody in this world can do it for you. You have to wake up that beast. You know, stop saying, you know, like when you see somebody that's a beast, or, you know, doing stuff that's, you know, extraordinary, everybody's so quick to be like, oh, they're a different breed, or, you know, that dude's crazy, or on something. Like, no, he's just not you. It's that simple. You know, it's like, you know, like people look at like David Goggins, or, you know, like these athletes and stuff like that do all these crazy things. They look at them as like, you know, a beast or a different breed. Like, no, they're just doing what they preach. They're practicing what they preach. You know, they implement what they preach. They're obsessed with what they do, and they do it great. You know, there is no room for trial and error. There is no room for excuses, none of that stuff, you know. And even if they do go through trial and error, what do? They keep going to the point where you wouldn't even know that they messed up, but they did, you know. And they probably won't even tell you, because that's not the point. The point is to keep going forward, and that's what they do. You know, you got to stop looking at things, or, you know, looking at other people like that in the sense of like, oh, I can't get there. Like, no, yes, you can. You know, you literally can. The only thing that's stopping you is you, because you think you can't. That's the whole, you know, you have to believe in yourself. You know, I said the only one that can make it happen is you. You know, I can't do it for you. I'm gonna try to, you know, I can try to help you wake up that beast or lead you to that path, but you still have to go through that path. So you can give somebody 100% everything, but at the end of the day, if they don't show up, if they don't, you know, whatever, like, that's on them. You know, it's not gonna work. It's within the individual. Whatever you all are trying to do in life, you know, like I said, your image, you know, what do you do? How do you carry yourself? All that stuff matters. You know, are you, you know, joking around? Are you, you know, sagging your pants? Like, are you doing childish stuff, or are you gonna grow up and be a man or be a woman? You know, do the things that you need to do. Your priorities need to be priorities. You know, real priorities, not bull crapping. You know? If you're in debt, but you're going to concerts or, you know, doing, I don't know, just going shopping, like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? You have things to do. You have bills to pay. You know, you have debt to get rid of. Like, that should be your priority. Oh, I want to have fun. Well, right now you can't have fun, because you kind of did that to yourself. And it takes that, you know. You have to sacrifice a little bit of fun to get the things that need to be done. You need to get the things that need to be done. It's that simple. You know, you have to be able to sacrifice, because that stuff ain't going nowhere. Club ain't going nowhere. Shopping malls ain't going nowhere. It's not going nowhere. You feel me? Sacrifice the little fun stuff and get rid of the serious stuff, and then you can open the door for all of that stuff. You know, it's time and a place. But right now, you have work to do. Some of y'all's image does need work, but the only one that can fix it is you. It's all up to you, man. I can't like preach it enough, man. It's all up to you. Y'all gonna hear me say that in all my videos, man. It's all up to you. You know, like I said, these videos are out there for people who want to work, who wants to listen and take that, take that advice and apply it to their lives. But y'all get it, this video is for anybody on here, but not everybody's gonna listen. Most people are just gonna keep scrolling, because they're too busy trying to get entertained, or they're trying to watch a funny video or whatever, something that's meaningless, when their goals and dreams are they're just sitting there. Most of them haven't even started on it. But like I said, that's gonna be on them. They're gonna have to pay that price when they get a lot older. Like, dang, all this time and flew, now I'm playing catch up. But we're not gonna do that. We're gonna get that head start. And like I said, we're gonna use that never stay satisfied mentality, man. And y'all already know. Remember, never stay satisfied. All right, y'all, see you on the next video.